David, in January 2011, you posted a 4-minute video on YouTube of yourself holding an iPhone with a tiny little circuit board attached. And this was before the phrase digital health even existed. So, or even before there was an FDA pathway, should I say. So this video went viral, and you said something at the time, and I love it. It was that it didn't matter whether the world was ready, you were ready. So what had you seen in the 30 years of inventing that made you so certain the world was about to catch up?
Well, the old expression of don't skate to the puck, skate to where the puck's going. You see a trajectory. I call it a strategic vector, and I saw that mobile and wireless would become critical elements for healthcare around the world for different reasons. In the United States, we have lots of hospitals and doctors' clinics, and lots of the world have very few. And mobile and wireless can help be the front door anywhere in the world. So I saw that and I thought this was a good idea.
Amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that with me. It's something that I wanted to ask you about. I've seen the video many a times. So cool. Take me back to the beginning of your story then. So you left clinical medicine back in the 1980s, at a time when almost no doctors did that. You know, your wife, your father, your mentors thought you'd be back. What was you seeing that they wasn't that made you want to stay in medical devices?
Well, it was the dumbest move I've ever made in my life. And so,
And for what reason?
well, they're just, there were no accelerators. There were no, the model of a physician leaving medicine and going and becoming an entrepreneur didn't really exist. Today, it's prevalent. There are all these accelerators. Every hospital health system around the world helps startups. There are organizations like MedTech Innovator and LSI and all these, MedTech world that help. Back then, there was nothing. So I was just stupid. I knew nothing about business, and so I just figured, "Hey, I think I'm a fairly smart guy. I ought to be able to figure this out." Well, that was not good. It wasn't always up and to the right, but I was fortunate enough that it's made a career and, fulfilled some of the things I wanted to do, and so it was, not a good idea, but it worked out.
And what was it that made you take that initial leap of faith? What made you leave?
Well, it was the fact that I'd already licensed a couple of inventions of mine and gotten some money. I was driving a Corvette I'd bought myself. My friends were all driving used VW Bugs. Those don't exist anymore. And so I had a new invention, and nobody wanted to license it. They didn't think it was a good idea. I thought it was a great idea. So that's when I went and said, "Hey, I'm gonna drop out of medicine and start a company." Again, bad idea, but it's worked out.
Cool. And was this Corazonix that you're talking about?
Yeah, correct. But my first company, Corazonix, as a student of Spanish, I'd grown up speaking Spanish and was very fluent when I was a young kid. Corazon is Spanish for heart, and so heart electronics is Corazonix. So
Okay, cool. And what did it look like as an early founder then? So, this is your first company, naive, straight out of medicine school. What was I guess the kickoff origin story like?
well, it was that it wasn't easy. And, you're spending your own money without making any more money, and, I had some money because 'cause I'd sold these inventions, but, you know, you had to hire people, and, you gotta pay them, they won't work for free, and then you also got I had a family, I had a daughter, I had a wife, so it was taking a blind leap. It's the old notion of you get on a board, okay, and you think it's a bridge, but it turns out to be a diving board, and, it's not a bridge to someplace else, it's a board that takes you off into the ocean, and again, I was just fortunate enough, I had some good people around me that we made it work and ultimately sold Corazonix, and then I was off to the next. I figured I knew what I was doing then. And actually, I didn't, but I at least knew what I didn't know, and that's important.
I'm noticing some trends. I think there's a lot of leap of faith, right? It seems like you think you've got it, and then you're stepping into something new. So that was when you sold the business to the arrhythmia research technology, I believe.
Yep.
Cool. Then what did you do after that? Then was it data
Well,
critical?
for a couple of years, I didn't do much. I was playing around with, uh, technology that was the absolute beginning, early 90s of mobile computing. So there were beginning, the Hewlett-Packard had a Palm-top computer, looked like a little laptop with a QWERTY keyboard, and then Palm came out with the Palm Pilot, the Apple Newton. These were all the first generation of mobile computing devices, and again, I thought that those would be important. And and at the time, wireless was, analog cell phones and pagers. And so I saw an opportunity to put some of these technologies together and apply them to medicine. Doctors use pagers. Uh, Palm-top computers seemed like the next step beyond a laptop, and laptops were pretty big at that time. Um, and again, that seemed to work, and there were companies like Hewlett-Packard, that also believed that that was the direction the medicine would go. It was at the time, they were a computing company, but they also had a medical division. Today, their medical division is part of Philips, ultimately became part of Philips when HP got rid of their medical group. But they were a leading player, and I had good connections there, and so I began that company, Data Critical, and again, got some very good people around me and got some people who believed in the future. Uh, a company called McCall Wireless. Craig McCall was an early pioneer in cellular. He sold his company to what is today AT&T. And there are people who believe that the future was there in wireless data. Today, we live on these things. So wireless data is just a part of our life. I'm on Wi-Fi right now with my laptop, but back then it was not part of your life. It was, if you had a connection, you had a Cat5 cable plugging in. So it again was another leap of faith. But again, Wayne Gretzky, skate to where the puck's going.
I love the fact that you said that you knew this new era was coming and you wanted to find a way to implement it into medicine. How did you decide that what space you were going to implement it in?
Well, because the things I knew. I've been doing cardiovascular research since 1978 when I was an early medical student at Duke. And so I knew that cardiology is an area of acute care. That is, your people having heart attacks, having arrhythmias, who need immediate care. But they're not all sitting in the hospital waiting to have an event. They're at home. They're out on the golf course. They're in all these places that are not in a healthcare venue. And so I saw this portable computing wireless data as a way to connect a patient anywhere they were to a doctor. And doctors don't sit behind a desk in front of a computer. They're mobile workers. They go from room to operating room to clinic to hospital. And so I saw that I needed to connect to people that were not in fixed locations. And that's where portable computing and wireless data came in. And I think I was right. To be honest with you, I was right that it was going to be critical today. It's just part of life. I mean, digital health had a good guy in 2010, 11. Digital health didn't exist. The term wasn't common knowledge, wasn't placed. But one of the things I heard early on was that we'll really know we've arrived when digital health just becomes health. And I think it's there today. We assume we'll have a video visit on our phone. We assume we can get prescription notifications on our phone. We assume we can go onto a portal and schedule a doctor's visit, et cetera. So it is really the front door. Digital health is just part of health. And that was it. Wireless data just became part of health.
And I think I'd agree with you there as well. I feel like it definitely, even from the 8 years I've been in the space, it's already leaping into that area. And I think you're absolutely right, especially with AI coming through and all these other big buzzwords. The one thing I wanted to talk to you about though was, so that was another successful acquisition. I believe Data Critical was bought by GE in September 2001, 2001,
2001.
2001.
We actually were bought on 9/11.
Oh wow! On the
We were
on
on
the
9/11. We had our shareholder vote on 9/11. I woke up, my wife rang me and said, "Turn on the television." I turned on the television, and literally 45 seconds later, Peter Jennings, and we watched live the second plane hitting the World Trade Center.
wow.
We watched it live on ABC. Peter Jennings in the morning. I was in Seattle, Washington, where we had Data Critical, and then I got dressed, went over to our office. People had a little television on. People were there for the shareholder vote, lawyers, and we were all kind of in shock. We were in shock. But that happened. GE, the vote went through, and we sold to GE on 9/11. So that kind of a 9/11 has it will always be burned into my brain.
Yeah, I didn't even know this. That was it was something that I didn't put two and two together with, and you know, it's something that was well, it changed American history, right? And
Morgan.
but how does it make you feel then, knowing that those 2 days, you know, two an awful thing that happened, and maybe one of the best days that could have happened for you as well?
Well, it was you know, people always say, "Well, how was it? Tell me how interesting it was." No, it was just life. We live it. We live it in real time, okay? So, it doesn't matter if you grew up in some special circumstance, it's all you know. You don't know other things. You grow up in a village in Africa, that's what you know. You grow up in a 90-story condo in Manhattan, that's all you know. And so the experience I went through was all I knew, and so you just live in real time. It was surreal at the time. We didn't know if the United States was under attack, nobody knew. Then you heard about the Pentagon, then you heard about the plane in Pennsylvania. So nobody knew what was going on, and I think, we just lived in real time.
I can only imagine. And, you know, I think something that I found quite interesting was you obviously you started out in startups, right? You created two of your own businesses. You actually stayed with GE for some time. What was it about being in such a large corporation do you think kept you there?
Well, it's the only company I've ever worked for that I didn't start.
Yep.
And so, it was an interesting education. I learned, about corporate politics, didn't really know anything about that. I learned about corporate structures and how people navigate, and when I first, joined GE, I didn't know any of those things, and I was, surprised by, how things operated, how people operated. So when I left, I think I had a fairly good idea of how that worked, and I also figured out that maybe I wasn't, cut out for that kind of environment, but I'd done fine, and my boss was this chief technology officer of GE Healthcare at the time, and he didn't want me to leave, so I knew that was the time to leave. Leave when you're on the top, don't leave when you're at the bottom. So,
And what was it that you think confirmed about being inside a large corporation like that you realized you wanted to be outside of one?
well, again, it was my only experience
Yeah.
of being in a company like that, and at the time, GE was one of the largest companies in the world. Uh, eh, Jeff Immelt was the new CEO. He had just started right before they bought, Data Critical, and, from the famous Jack Welch, and I think we all saw, this conglomerate that had all these different kind of disparate pieces. I just lived in my piece. And so you're at a little piece of a bigger piece of a much bigger piece, and you saw, that probably was a challenge for management, is managing all these different businesses, all these different geographies. And so I learned that, maybe focus is a critical element. And today, all the big conglomerates basically have dissolved. GE now has 3 different pieces that are independent companies: healthcare, jet engines, and power plants, all doing fine. Um, and the other conglomerates like Honeywell, et cetera, have all United Technologies have all split. So, that I saw that probably management focus was a critical element, and we've tried to apply that in our own business.
Very, very nice. And then after GE, I noticed that you actually stepped out of cardiology. I believe you went to, well, started a business called Lifetone. Is that correct?
Yeah, but it was totally related, actually,
Okay.
uh, because I still believe in trying to save lives.
Yep.
What I knew was, it's an interesting story, is that we had we were playing around, and literally I say playing around, in the basement of my house with a computer. Didn't have a laptop, had a desktop computer, and it had a microphone and early days of sending audio. We weren't even sending video on over the web. And as part of this, I had a device that allowed me to send an EKG acoustically over the web. And when I was in the basement one day, a smoke alarm went off. A beep. I've got one back here. You can see it up there on the right there is a smoke alarm. But when this one was battery powered, because I was in an old house in 1936, it wasn't wired in like this one, and it makes a beep. And then about 10 seconds later, it makes another beep. And that's to tell you the battery's low and you need to change it. So my daughter, who today is 40, said, "Dad, that's your smoke alarm. You need to change the battery." So I go up and get a 9-volt battery, which these things used, and I went into 2 or 3 rooms over, and I change it, and when I changed it, I put the new battery in, went beep, 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 beep to tell you that you'd put the new battery in correctly. And I walk back, and my daughter says, "Hey, Dad, your heart monitor picked up the smoke alarm." And I went, "What?" Said, "Your heart monitor picked up the smoke alarm, and it went beep, 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 beep on the screen. Instead of an EKG, it was this beep, beep, beep." And I went, "Wow, that's pretty cool." Because, I said, "Maybe these things can that could be useful." And that was the genesis of what became Lifetone. And, I'll be honest, we've saved lots of people's lives because there are a lot of people out there in the world that can't hear, especially elderly people who die, in greater percentages than young people in a fire. And so built a business doing that still today. We sell these devices. A Red Cross and people around the country use them to wake up a senior citizen who might wear hearing aids during the day, but at night they take them out. They can't hear anything. And so this device will wake them up. He will hear the alarm and wake them up and get them out of the house. So it was one life-saving invention to another. It was accidental, but then a lot of innovations are accidental. And so that became, a passion and still is. I'm still on the board of directors of that company. It's an independent company, and it's licensed. Speaking of, it licensed technology to United Technologies and because it developed some really cool technology we developed and still to this day sells a life-saving invention that whether you're a fire department or the Red Cross buy to put in people's houses who are vulnerable. And so it was consistent. It may not have been specifically cardiology, but it was, life-saving, and that's my goal.
You speak about consistent there, and one thing that is consistent with each of these chapters is that you just can't stop building things. So what is it about you as a person? Is it like the curiosity? Is it, something more relentless inside? What is it that keeps you wanting to make new things?
Well, it goes from when I was a kid. I was always experimenting, all kinds of crazy experiments, and my friends knew that. My friends knew I was kind of the mad scientist even as a child, and so that kept going. That has been continued as I grew older, and today, I'm uh, I can tell you I'm less motivated today than I was 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, but I think I still have curiosity, and that's basically what it is. It's curiosity. Well, if I do this, what happens? And it's also being open to new ideas. That's really what's critical, is be open to new ideas, and I gave a lecture 20 years ago at the MIT Sloan School, their business school at MIT, and I coined a term intersecting the strategic vector, and that is and the notion of orthogonal innovation. That is, if everybody's looking in this direction to solve a problem, I wanna look in this direction. Orthogonal, 90 degrees. I wanna take a different perspective, and that has worked for me, over my entire career.
I think it did again in 2009 when Steve Jobs was talking about the iPhone, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, he had as one of his famous, "one more things," and I saw the opportunity to implement an idea it had almost 10 years before, but wasn't practical. Again, technology is not always there to implement an idea. And one of the things, I mean, AliveCor today is in Mountain View, which is the heart of Silicon Valley, where Google's headquarters is. There's a saying in Silicon Valley that to be early is to be wrong. You can be early with an idea that later becomes a huge success, and it doesn't turn into a great company. Well, I had a good idea in 1996, but there wasn't the technology. It was early. And so then when the smartphone became a reality and wireless data was a reality, then AliveCor became a reality. And I think that you've got to appreciate when the time is right.
And talk to me about that then. It'd be good to get an overview of, where AliveCor, well, the birth of AliveCor really, and where it's at today. What's changed?
Well, we do a lot of things. I mean, one of the things consistently, the fundamental idea was to connect a patient who could be anywhere with a doctor who could be anywhere. Okay. Well, doctors are not always available, so maybe you connect them to a nurse or you connect them to an emergency provider, an EMS. But the whole notion is you have a direct link, because the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So instead of calling somebody and calling this and that, we that was the basic premise. And we do that today, whether it's a consumer buying our product off Amazon anywhere in the world, or whether it's a hospital providing it to a patient who they're going to monitor. We are the connector. We connect their critical data to the people who need to see it, who need to know about it. So I think that consistent theme, whether we're doing it in a consumer-oriented environment or in a healthcare institution-oriented environment, is a consistent theme for the company.
I want to take a minute to say thank you to our sponsors, TTP. TTP is a leader in complex medical device development. With deep scientific and engineering expertise, they help medtech teams crack tough development challenges and make the right calls early, reducing rework, delays, and uncertainty later on. Whether you're navigating uncharted technical territory or racing towards market, TTP brings clarity and real-world judgment to the decisions that shape performance, usability, and manufacturability. By retiring risk early and grounding innovation in real-world constraints, they help you move forward with speed and confidence. To find out more, check out the show notes.
Okay. And, you've scaled the business to an incredible business. It's one of the most talked about companies in ECG and across cardiology as well. It can't have all been exciting. It can't have all been great. There must have been some times when it got tough. Tell me about it.
It's never up and to the right. There's no such thing as up and to the right. I was just looking at a graph of NVIDIA's stock price, which if you look just over the last couple of years, it just looks like a rocket takeoff. But if you look back, it's an awful lot of flat line, just flat line. Why? Because they made boards for gamers.
Yep.
Not a huge business, a niche business, okay? Video boards for video gamers on PCs. That's what they did. And then all of a sudden, AI came around, and you give Jensen Huang credit. He saw an opportunity to take the technology he developed for something else and apply it to a much bigger thing. And I think it's keep your eyes open and look for the opportunities.
And what do you think that opportunity was with AliveCor to really take you guys on the?
Well, great opportunity. We were up and to the right, but at a very low slope. And then something happened. It's called COVID. And all of a sudden, telemedicine and telecare, which had been around for 25 years, but not very adopted, all of a sudden became necessary, because patients weren't going to go to doctors' offices. They weren't going to go to hospitals, but they still needed care. And so suddenly the graph went vertical, the adoption went vertical. And after COVID, I was worried that we'd drop back down. But no, people now love telecare. They love telemedicine. They rely on it, whether it's to get prescriptions or get their kids' earaches diagnosed. And so that was a step change in the business opportunity for AliveCor, and we capitalized on it, and we've continued then, once that step change, to keep going up and to the right. So, you're doing this, then you do this, and then you keep doing that. You don't drop back down, and that I think is what was a seminal moment for the company, because all the telehealth companies saw that, and many of them capitalized on it. Some of them didn't, and that was, not everybody wins. Not everybody wins, but we prospered and have continued to grow, and I think we have lots of great opportunities right now.
You do, and you said not everyone can win, but the patients certainly have been winning. And I think I was reading about the Edinburgh IPED trial. Like, some of the data there is quite daunting at first, but if you look at how much you guys improved there, it's impeccable. How much do you think you've actually changed the standard of care in this space?
Well, I think people, today, hundreds of millions of people have a personal EKG device, whether it's an Apple Watch or Garmin or Whoop or Fitbit. It doesn't matter who it is, Samsung. We pioneered it.
Yeah.
And we pioneered it. We were there, and we were selling to consumers before any of these people saw it as an opportunity. And so we have hundreds of millions of recordings, and that gives us a lot of, data is the new oil when it comes to AI, and we have tremendous data. And that also got us because, we have 250 plus peer-reviewed publications. We've proven it. I came from, an academic medical perspective. That I knew that in medicine, we've got to prove, you got to validate your innovation to get it accepted. And we've done that. It's different to sell it to a consumer than it is to sell it to a doctor. But all of them want to believe that it works and know that. And so we've capitalized on that and continue to do so today with places like Edinburgh and Qatar and Los Angeles General Hospital. When I was a kid, there was a soap opera in America called General Hospital. Well, that was LA General Hospital, where we're running a clinical trial right now. It's a brand new hospital, but the old one that they used in the beginning of that soap opera is still there. And I smile thinking my mother, rest in peace, would watch that show, and now her son is working at General Hospital.
Well, the sun's gone very far, and it's funny you mentioned about the consumer brands being like spearheaded into existence, really. I don't even know if you know this story, but it was a Whoop band that helped me get my diagnosis. So I was away camping, and I got a notification telling me to seek medical attention. I felt fine. I was looking at my app thinking something's wrong with it, shunned it off, and I woke up the next day, same thing again, bleeping me, telling me to get medical attention. So I went to Manchester Royal, and I had thyroid storm. Didn't know I had an underlying health condition. Obviously the heart rate went through the roof, and they couldn't work out what it was. I had doctors asking me about, do my family have any history of heart attacks, etc. And it suddenly became pretty real. I was like, shit, this is kind of serious. I was kind of worried about it. And it turned out that I had thyroid storm, and I'd probably had an underlying condition for some time. And again, it came from a Whoop band that I was using to help get a better sleep score. I couldn't believe it.
Well, I mean, many of us now, have wearables of all kinds have become standard. And I think that was, again, these added on from the AliveCors and the Fitbits, the Kardias. You now have, many people. I think I've seen almost half the United States, adults have some kind of wearable, on the wrist, the finger, whatever. And so, and in the future, it'll even be a higher prevalence, and obviously around the world. So, those will be monitoring us 24/7, and hopefully will, like your example, improve our outcomes.
Absolutely. I've seen some crazy ones recently. I've seen like toilet seats when you sat down in the morning taking measurements, beds for remote patient monitoring. You are right. I don't think it doesn't even feel like it's far away right now.
No, it's not. I mean, I live here in Santa Monica, California, and I can go outside and get a Waymo, a driverless taxi that'll take me anywhere around Los Angeles. And when you see it manage the Los Angeles traffic, you know that AI and autonomy, whatever it is here today. It's not 50 years in the future. It is today, and that's going to be applied to all aspects of our life, certainly healthcare.
And I think talking about today then, so, where is AliveCor today? I know that you've had some pretty excitement announcements this year, the CE mark for the Kardia 12L. What is on the horizon for you guys and what's going to keep on building?
Well, it's funny you should ask because I've been I was just at a meeting a few weeks ago, and I was having meetings, and people were saying, "Well, what's next for AliveCor?" And I told them, "Well, I'm not going to tell you what's next for AliveCor, but I can guarantee you that we have some exciting opportunities, and that we'll continue to do what we do best, and that is enable better outcomes by connecting the right information at the right time, okay? And that's a triple notion in medicine. You want the right medication at the right dose for the right patient at the right time. And I think we're going to be doing that with information. You're going to have the right information at the right time that improves outcomes. And we're going to continue to do that.
So help me understand a little bit then. So the Kardia 12L, what does it actually provide that no other portable device has done before?
Well, what it is it's the first 12-lead ECG that's totally powered by deep learning, by millions of ECGs. Our corporate partners at Mayo Clinic and Emory helped us build this system that allows us to in a really expeditious manner do a complete cardiac ECG and have it analyzed in a device I can put in my pocket. And that's revolutionary, and it can diagnose a heart attack anywhere, and we've literally got thousands of them we've already diagnosed, and that's exciting for Europe now that we're CE marked, but we've been doing both Edinburgh and Leeds, 2 sites there, have a tremendous experience and have already shown how good it works, and so we're excited about taking basically a diagnosis that used to take a cart and a big device and putting it in your pocket and having it be anywhere. And that's a story in and of itself, because the genesis of the 12L came from a couple of events where you just have to keep your eyes and ears open for me. And that was it's always enlightening to see a need and think you might have a solution to it.
And what are the main indications are you looking for? Is this for heart attacks, ischemia?
Well, it does all of those.
Okay.
So anywhere where you would traditionally love to have a 12-lead ECG, middle of the jungle in Africa, South America, India, China, Indonesia, the outback of Australia, it doesn't matter. Rural United States, middle Montana, wherever you'd like to have, where there's someone that could be there who's having a cardiac event, but you don't have it. You got to transport them. And now you've got something that is inexpensive, comparatively inexpensive compared to traditional devices, completely portable, wirelessly connected, and AI driven, so that you don't have to be an expert to use it. And it does all of those things. And so it's being used around the world, and we continue to push new applications. So I have some new applications of it that are going to help. And some of them are out in the middle of nowhere, and some of them actually are in the most exclusive hospital environments, intensive care units, operating rooms, where it can provide a very unique benefit.
So I'm just looking at the data from some of it now, and it says that it can detect 39 cardiac conditions. But where does the ceiling sit with this? Because 39 is already a lot.
Next generation will do 55. We will continue to push that envelope with more and more as the AI gets better and better. And again, AI gets better as you feed it more data, and we continue to feed it data. We're very fortunate that we have both great partners, and now we have a number of customers for this device, with 1,000 devices out there that are feeding us data that we can use to improve the AI. And I think, we all understand AI has changed the world on almost every aspect of our life, and certainly it can be of great value in helping us in medicine.
And since its launch in 2024, how many patients do you think you've helped identify? Heart attacks or anything?
Oh, well, specifically heart attacks, hundreds at least heart attacks, hundreds. I know, but patients, thousands of patients. So, any one of our devices may have been used 1,500, 2,000 times already. So with 1,000 out there, I think time will tell ultimately how beneficial it is, but it's so far so good. Let's put it that way.
But now, so answer me this: as someone who left med school in a naive fashion in a time where it probably wasn't wise to do so, how does it make you feel now, knowing that you potentially or have done save thousands of lives each year?
Oh, I mean, this is what I set out to do, my friend. This is why I became a doctor in the beginning. I became a doctor in order to save people's lives. And, my dad had a heart attack, and that was a seminal moment for me. I had been this experimentalist, bad scientist as a kid, and I can tell you, I wanted to be a doctor from about the age of 5, and it was because of two. My pediatrician was a wonderful man, took care of me all the way up through I was, I think, 18 or 19 years old, but there were 2 TV shows that I really was fascinated about. I don't know why a little kid would be fascinated. There's one called Ben Casey. He was a neurosurgeon, very interesting 1960s show, and another one called Dr. Kildare. So today we have a lot of medical shows, The Pit, incredibly famous, and lots of shows. But those 2 were dramas, and they were back in the 1960s, and why a little kid would be fascinated with those, I have no idea, but they inspired me.
So talking about that, inspiring the future then, you've been in cardiovascular for over 30 years now. How long do you think it is?
40 years.
Over 40 years now, taking the years off you, Dave. You must have a pretty good idea of what the market's potentially going to look like in 10 years. And it'd be good to get a high level overview of where you think are problems that still haven't even been close to being solved yet.
Well, medicine usually is incremental in terms of innovation. You build on top of the last one, okay? We've seen one thing that is disruptive in a step function, the GLP-1s.
Yep.
Never seen anything like them. My wife is a rheumatology faculty. She walked behind me here earlier in this podcast. She's rheumatology faculty at USC. And Humira was the biggest selling drug in the world ever, $22 billion a year. Eli Lilly just did $20 billion in a quarter for tirzepatide. In a quarter. So it is these drugs have changed the world, and yes, people are using them for cosmetic weight loss, but they're incredibly beneficial, and we're just finding out the things they can do. They help your heart, they help your kidneys, they help many aspects that don't have anything to do with the weight loss function. So we're learning incrementally after this step function and the benefits. I just saw today big world-class oncology meeting, and they're showing amazing results for new medicines in devastating diseases like pancreatic cancer. And so these are sometimes incremental, but they can be big incremental. You go from a 5-year survival rate of 5% to a 5-year survival rate of 30%. That doesn't sound like much. You'd hate to be in the 70%, but it's unbelievably beneficial compared to what it was. And so we're going to continue. Biology will continue to give us new insights, and we'll continue to provide new therapies, and we'll continue to do what I said, improve outcomes. And so I think that's where AI is going to help us with this. It's going to help us in developing new drugs. It's going to help us in analyzing the data we already have, whether it's blood chemistries or imaging, etc. And I think the best is yet to come. 10 years from now, we'll look back and say, wow, we weren't very smart then. I'm a lot smarter.
And let's talk about that. I feel like the term AI can be used. Some people use it as a buzzword. Some people use it for the excellence that it is, right? Where do you think that AI models are going to have the biggest difference in the cardiovascular space?
Well, they're already one. They can help us predict who's really at risk.
Yep.
Today, how do you know somebody? You line up 100 people. Who's going to have a heart attack? We can do their lipids. We can do their calcium scores. We can look at their family history. We can do all those things, and we still can't pick out the people. We can say, well, you're at higher risk. That doesn't mean you're going to have it. So I think AI is going to help us get insights into who's really at risk and who do we need to address today. All right. And then it's also going to tell us who's at risk in 30 years.
Yeah.
So we begin treating people, whether it's blood pressure or hyperlipidemia or whatever it is, in their 20s and 30s, so that by the time they get to their 60s and 70s, they're not at risk of having a heart attack. And so these are the things where AI, because humans cannot assimilate all this data on all these patients. We have such limited time to spend as physicians with patients today, and so many demands on our time. We are going to have help, and that's why I call AI augmented intelligence. Yeah, it's not really artificial. It's going on. It's using data, machine learning, looking at the past and predicting the future. And by the way, best way to predict the future is look at the past.
I got told a mega story about this, and you may have even heard this story as well previously. It was Martin Herman from Powerful Medical was telling me that when they was first trying to gain traction, they would go to see cardiologists and tell them to bring 10 of their last ECG results, and they was predicting what the patient was eventually diagnosed with, or the indications. And they were saying that because there were a couple of young guys coming in there telling these cardiologists that they could predict it, that he was like, nah, these guys can't do it. And they said that they'd get 1 or 2 right, and it was like, okay, pretty lucky, 3 or 4 right. Okay, they're getting somewhere. He said by the time they got to result 6 and 7, he said there's a photo of some of the cardiologists with like their hands on the back of their head as if to be like, how are they even doing this? So I think you're absolutely right. I think it's one of those areas where as long as the history is right, if you can start to utilize it and utilize that data, that's where the magnificence of AI could be.
Well, I can tell you, as a person who's proud of having an open mind, I first saw Robert Herman present a number of years ago, and I said, these young men, and I bought him a drink. I bought him and Martin a drink at an ECG meeting and told them I thought they were on the right path. They're good friends, they're collaborators in research, and will be collaborators with the AliveCor going forward. And so I'm and it also makes me proud. They've done a great job. I'm proud of those guys, and they're making an impact. So, again, I had an open mind. I didn't go in thinking, "Nah, they can't do it." I went in thinking, "Wow, let's see what they can do."
There's some mega guys. I think they're gonna do some excellent work. So I will
Yeah,
absolutely
they're
agree
good
with
all
you
of
there.
them. Yeah,
They are.
they're great. They're a great team. The whole team. I've got to know all of them, and they're good people. And as I said, my wife and I are heading after Munich to Bratislava, and on the invitation of the team, and we look forward to it. They went to a meeting down in Southern California, and they came by here, and we took them all out to dinner. And my wife enjoyed meeting them and talking to them. They're good people.
Well, I heard that they can party well as well. I believe Martin turned 30 at LSI.
That was it. They were at LS. I think, so we were. I'm not going to say we were sobering them up, but we were well modulated here. But they're good people, and they're doing great work.
Good. I want to go back to something whilst we're talking about the future of the space. And you said something earlier that you was waiting for the day that digital health simply becomes health. So what do you think still needs to happen before that day arrives? We're getting there now, but what do you think the world still needs to see from tech companies, from medical device companies, even hospitals, really?
Well, I just saw a posting from one of my friends, Dr. Brennan Spiegel, who runs a lot of clinical research at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, one of our major medical centers. And he was talking about how they have, for a number of years, integrated digital health information into their medical record, into Epic, which is what they use there. The problem is it can be a tsunami of data. And so we really need all that data from all these wearables to be distilled down into clinical insights and into the type of alert you got from your Whoop.
Yeah.
And say to the doctor and the patient, hey, something to be addressed here. Because a doctor can't go through, 3 inches of Fitbit data or Whoop data or Apple Watch data. They need that to be insight. And the EMR doesn't need to store all that. It needs to store the insights, the trends. And so I see when all that wearable data can be distilled and have the information extracted, and that's integrated into the electronic medical record, that's when digital health becomes health.
And is there anyone that's doing that right now?
Well, the people are yes, it's being done in fits and spurts, but it's
Yep.
there's very few standards, and so we're struggling with that. Different EMRs, different languages, different devices with different types of data and different resolutions, at not consistent implementation of AI. It's going to come incrementally, but we're going to get there. You asked what's going to happen in 5 years. That's going to happen. Digital health will be health.
Okay. And what's going to happen with you in 5 years? You've sold businesses, raised over 300 million, filed 80 patents. What's next?
I put the grand in grandpa. I have grandkids, and it's time to help young people like the Powerful Medical, like the Herman Brothers.
Yep.
Implement their vision, and I'm happy to do that. I think it's always time for the old generation to make room for the young generation and to do what we can do to help them, because we all stand on the shoulders of giants who came before us. And I think that will be what I do in 5 years.
Do you know what I find interesting about you though, Dave, is, you talk about the old generation passing across the torch to the new generation. Your generation of what you was building is technically the new generation. You was building something that this new generation is now utilizing and using in so many different applications. So I guess, what advice would you be giving to anyone who's looking to continue innovating in this space now?
Well, I think you obviously cannot ignore AI.
Yeah.
This is a mega trend. This is across all aspects of our life. AI is having an impact, and from education through healthcare. So I think transportation doesn't matter what it is. Everything is being impacted by it. The world changed in October of 2023 when ChatGPT was introduced to the world. The world changed, and just like when Steve Jobs introduced the iPhone, the world changed. So be cognizant of those changes and understand that they create opportunities. Innovators are those people who take advantage of the opportunities that arise. And so, Steve Jobs took advantage of the opportunities that arise in portable computing technology and wireless data. Today, ChatGPT is taking advantage of deep learning and cloud-based, huge cloud-based data centers that enabled the development of these LLMs. So keep your eyes and ears open.
Okay.
And look for opportunities.
Go find them. And then my last question that I wanted to leave you with. So for anyone that's listening, cardiologists, GPs, patients, anyone who still hasn't seriously thought about portable cardiac diagnostic devices, what would you want them to hear to consider people to leverage this more?
Well, we have people. I can put it simply.
Yep.
Somebody who has a Whoop, it's your age, or an Apple Watch is probably your age, or maybe even a little older. But if you have a Kardia, the average age is over 60. Okay, because by and large there are a lot of diagnosed patients.
Yeah.
And so what I would say is, if you have a risk factor, get a wearable. Okay, and I think be cognizant of how you feel. It's all about do not ignore. There's the old notion of don't ignore warning signs. Well, warning signs come in many different flavors. And so be aware of yourself. Look for anything that seems unusual, a change. And today, take advantage of the fact that we have technology that can literally put health on your finger.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. I genuinely can't thank you enough, Dave. I've been wanting to speak with you for a while now. Thank you for sharing insights into your career and what you've built. And yeah, I look forward to keeping an eye on what AliveCor does next.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. It's been my pleasure, and have a wonderful day.
You too, Dave. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening to The Crux of Cardio. If there's one thing this space has taught me, both personally and professionally, it's that progress in cardiovascular care is never the result of one individual. It's built by ecosystems, by teams, by people willing to take the long bets on hard problems. At Crux, our mission is to support that ecosystem through talent, capital, and community. The podcast is one small part of that effort, a place to share the real stories from people shaping the future of cardiovascular care. If you found value in today's conversation, I would love for you to follow the show and share it with someone building in this space. And if you're a founder, operator, or investor working on something meaningful in the cardiovascular care space, we'd love to hear from you.